All right, everybody, we are going into 2023. And as a person that has built a Foxbody multiple times, and from my last project, I made a lot of mistakes, but I also did some good things as well. I want to give you all my top 10 tips on how to build a Foxbody.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Mr.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah,
All right, what's happening, everybody? It's your boy Ken O'Shawn with the world famous Blue Oval Media. And yes, today I want to close out the year by giving you all my tips, me personally, on the best ways to rebuild, build, however you want to call it, your Foxbody. One of the things that's key about this video is that I'm going to give you just a little bit of history about me. I have had a Foxbody, okay, now a Mustang, a Foxbody since 19, wow, even when I even say the words 19, that just says something. But since 1998, I have been around them even before that, as I believe I've had a Foxbody in my life, all my life, as my old man had a Lincoln Mark 7 that I believe he's had, I think, since I was alive. It was a 84 Lincoln Mark 7. And so I've been around these things for quite a long time. I purchased my first one in 1999-ish, 98-ish. I purchased a 1990 GT Foxbody Mustang and had 4 of them between that time frame to 2003. Then from 2003 up until 2016, I had none. Still knew all about it, but just didn't have any. And then from 2016 up until now, I've had the Foxbody Mustang that you all know me the most for, which is the KSD notch. And let me tell you all something. I've learned a lot, been through a lot, seen a lot, and I kind of want to just help you all. If you're starting your journey or you're somewhat in it, I kind of want to help you all, help you avoid some of the mistakes that I made as it relates to you building your Foxbody Mustang. All right, so my first tip, number 1, is that you need to make a plan. Yes. One of the things that I thought I did right, I thought I made a plan, but a lot of times when you make a plan, you can make one in your mind. And then when you make that plan, you may have forgotten some things along the way. The first thing you should do is to sit down, literally, if you can, put it in your notes, in your computer, write it out, but make a plan on what you want this vehicle to be. Okay, like make a plan. Number 2, you probably need a budget. Now, I know a lot of us don't care. I know these cars can be money pits, but let me tell you something. The way to avoid some of the stress of doing this thing, because this thing can become a money pit, you probably need to make a budget around that. So with that, that means that some builds are going to be different. So some of the stuff that I'm going to focus on today are for those who may be spending mid-tier to higher end money on it, okay? For those of you all that may be, you know, on a more budget-friendly census as it relates to you building your car, some of these tips can still help you as well. But these are for those like, man, I'm going all the way in. This is going to help you. My next point is whatever you don't know. Whatever you don't know, whatever you can't do, find you somebody that is reliable that can help you put this car together. Over the years, I've had a few people that were reliable and some that weren't. And unfortunately, the non-reliable ones cost me more than what it would have been if I had just the right reliable person to help me with some of the work on the car. And so I encourage you to look up the person, whoever you're going to deal with or whatever, make sure they're credible, make sure they know what they're doing to help you out as it relates to your build. My next tip before I get into technical stuff is to be patient. Man, one of the things about building these cars is that you have to be patient. I'm telling you all, patience is going to be one of the key things in you getting this thing that, like, if you don't have patience, man, you're going to be throwing wrenches, throwing motors, for y'all that struggle to throw a motor, You can be doing all type of crazy stuff. And I'm trying to tell you, learn from me. Please be patient. Now my next one, depending on what your build is, I will start with stripping the whole car. I mean, take everything out of that car that you possibly can. And let me tell you why. When you strip the whole car, you know everything about the car. A couple of my buddies who I am very cool with, that's what they did. They literally took everything out the car and figured it all out. I actually ended up finding out I did that for the most part. I've said I stripped it 80%. And then once I found the previous owner of the vehicle, I understood why I had a lot of the issues that I had. And I'm going to get into that later, but strip everything. I'm talking about, man, door panels, all the interior, hood, trunk, doors off, everything, like, because you're going to need it, especially as we go into the next point. The next point is, if you can, man, sandblast, media blast, however you want to do it, man, get all of that stuff off the car. Like, for real, whatever it was, whatever the old paint was, old Bondo, whatever, take everything out, pull that motor trans off, strip that whole car, and then make sure, man, sandblast that whole thing through. You know, man, make sure, man, literally, if you can rotisserie it, do that as well, but like, get all of that stuff off the car. Now, that stuff gets into a different category of money, and then, you know, you have to ask yourself, you know, one of the things I think, shout out to my man SN95 Power, he asked me, you got to make sure you know what type of car do you want. Do you want show car or street car, or, you know, something that you're driving daily? Now, all of that is going to play a role in what you're going to do next. The next tip I have, get you, after you do all that, make sure you have a painter that is trustworthy. You do not, I repeat, you do not want to be in the space that I was in and have to have 4 different painters paint your car, because then it's going to show. And then you're going to be in a space where you're going to be highly upset, and all this money has went into it, where if you would have just did it right the first time. And a lot of times you can't think that you're doing it right, because you are going to people that may be reliable. I would say cite your sources. Make sure it's somebody that you know personally, that you've seen their work done, you've seen how they do it, even the color that you're trying to go after. Make sure that they can even handle that, because a lot of times some painters are good with some things and not good with others. Some can buff, some can't. But then also make a decision on if you're going to shave that engine bay. Another thing too, are you going to remove the sway bar mounts? A lot of guys shave the engine bay and have those sway bar mounts just sitting there with no sway bar. If that's going to be a problem for you, make sure you cut those mounts off, shave those boys down. You know what I mean? Put those Scott rod panels in the Scott rod. I think they sell the actual piece that covers that mount, weld it in, because all of that is going to play a role. Making sure that that engine bay is welded, done right, Bondo shade, however, make sure that's that all of that is right. And then if you are going to do all that engine bay, I'll ask yourself, am I going to run AC? Am I going to run heat? Am I going to run that wiring harness? Because if not, you can shave all of that and then, you know, put the metal in, weld it, shave all that down so that you don't have those holes in the engine bay. Some people still want all those holes and things of that nature. But you got to ask yourself, do you want all that? How far do I want to go? Do I really want all of that inside of the engine bay since I have all of it out? Because if not, and you make the decision later, you're going to have to pull that engine back out again. Or you're going to be trying to do something that's probably impossible, that won't come out right because you did not make the proper decision beforehand to fill those holes. Now, I know we don't want to look at these cars as antique cars at this point, but Fox bodies are over 40 years old. Let's just call it what it is. The beginning of them started in the 70s, and we are in 2000, going into 2023. You need to start with some new wiring. 30, 40-year-old wiring is just not going to hold up at this point. And we're talking about some of these cars were in all type of weather, all type of situations, wires merging into them, all type of. Listen to me. You can build the most perfect, beautiful car, and that car will be breaking down every time because you're still using old Fox body wiring that is not reliable at this point, that has been through the wire, that has just. Please listen to me when I say, learn it from me and my mistakes. Start with new wiring. I believe there are a couple of companies. I don't know if Ron Francis still sells a wiring kit, but I believe they sell a wiring kit for these cars. I know LMR sells a new wiring kit. Now, depending on how you go, you may do a Holly and all of that. There are some things that you're not going to need. You won't need the injector harness. You won't need, it's a whole bunch of stuff that you just won't need. But you need, I'm telling you, please listen to me, start with new wiring. Because that old stuff, And then having, depending on what year, and having that fuse box right there by your foot or by your knee and all that, you may want to relocate that and extend that harness, things of that nature, because I'm telling you, you're going to be able to hide those wires better with a new wiring kit. Put that fuse box in a place that could be more conducive to your needs and not it being under your foot or under your knee. It could go in the trunk. It's all different type of ways to do it. I'm telling you, learn from my mistakes and start with new wiring, please. My next point: know who sells good parts for these cars. Now, there are a lot of reputable companies out here. And I like, hands down, we all know Late Model Restoration. And I'm saying that from somebody that I probably ordered the majority of my parts from them. Late Model Restoration, I am not sponsored by them. I'm saying this from what I know. LMR is number one. Then you got places like National Parts Depot, for other things as well, things of that nature. I just ordered something from them recently that I paid for, not sponsored. I'm just giving you all some tips. I think, then other people like, if you transmission stuff, I always mess with Handling Motorsports. Ford Racing still sells great stuff. I like UPR. I like Maximoso. I like all these guys because, like I said, I'm not sponsored by some of these people, so I can say who I like. I like a couple of different people. I love Holley as well. I'm a big fan of Holley and the Terminator X system and all the Holley kits. They modernize the car. So if you're trying to modernize it, you're going to have to kind of like, deal with these people. Man, I would suggest yourself to like literally go with the good people, go with the good people. Like, these are the people that sell the parts for these cars. Not saying that other people don't. There's a whole bunch of other companies as well, but that's going to take for you to look that up. The next thing I would say is familiarize yourself with these parts so that you can make the proper decision on which parts you are going to purchase. And what I mean by that is, I have purchased parts over and over again and I ended up losing money and wasting money because I bought a part once, then decided I wanted something else, then decided I wanted something else, where I could have just got the main thing that I wanted. If I would have just waited until I had either A, the money, or B, the knowledge, I could have had what I wanted besides buying all these parts and then, But also don't feel bad if you find yourself buying something more than once, because I had to do it. And so I remember, when I first started, I had a set of, perfect example, when I first started, I had probably a set of Raceland coilovers on my car because I needed to lower it. They were the cheapest ones at the time. But then a couple of years later, 3 years later, then I switched everything over to Viking coilovers. I should have just started with Viking. But at that time, my car wasn't even worthy of Viking, in my opinion. Not saying, you have to be of a certain level. But for me, I felt like for me to spend all this money on these type of coilovers, my car needs to be up to a certain par. It wasn't until after I put Terminator motor and all that in there that I decided to put those on there. And they've been working for me very well. So I'm just saying, as it relates to all of that, make sure you think about those things as well, because that will play a key part. And not only going back to your budget and the money, but then also how your Foxbody is going to ultimately look and feel when you're actually finished with the car. Then my last tip, you might just change your mind. What I mean by that is some of the things that you may have started with, you may have done everything that I just said and then get to a point where you might just change your mind. And I have done that. I'm always going to say this: do what you feel is comfortable for yourself so that you're in a position to where you're going to like your car. But also make sure you're going to enjoy it as well. Because one of my other tips, I wasn't going to throw it in here, but I'm going to throw it in here now. Don't compare yourself to all of these other cars that you see on social media, or maybe you even see at the shows. Because what it's going to do is going to always try to force you or put you in a space that I got to keep building it to look like this, or I got to keep competing with. You are in no competition with nobody but yourself. At the end of the day, I know the flaws that I have with my vehicle. And I can look at the next person's vehicle and be like, man, my car doesn't look like theirs. But there's somebody that's looking at my vehicle saying their car doesn't look like mine. And they're spending all this money. And look, do not put your family or your finances over, in jeopardy because of this car. Get to the space where you can start enjoying this car. And I'm saying this even to me right now. Like, part of the reason why you're seeing me not do as much Foxbody content anymore is because I am stopping, because I'm at the point of, if I don't start driving and enjoying this car, I'm going to regret every dollar, minute, hour, day, night that I put into it, because I just have a car that I just take to shows that I never drive. And that's not going to be 2023 for me. I am going to drive the car. I am going to enjoy the car. And that's the ultimate goal, is for you to drive it and for you to enjoy it. And so bottom line, you all, that's what I have for you all. Those are my tips, man. These Fox bodies, they're much older. So they need a little bit more attention. You know what I mean? There's a lot of stuff that they're going to need, you know, and so you want to take into consideration, not only just study the platform, study the car, but then also know what it is that you want to do. Modular motor, push rod motor, Coyote, Gen 1, Gen 2, Gen 3, now going into Gen 4, now things of that nature. Like, what do you want to put in it? 347, 393, whatever. What do you want to do with it? Just come to that conclusion and then start building on it. But at the end of the day, after you build, make sure you enjoy it. It's your boy, Kenneth Sean. Those are my tips with Blue Oval Media. Make sure you like, make sure you subscribe, and comment below with some of your tips as well. I may not have covered them all, but comment below with some of the tips that you have for building your Fox body. It's your boy, Kenneth Sean. I am out.